I get hard enough to talk about Luke because Luke and I were very, very close friends. And we knocked around together for years. We played golf 3 times a week for 20 odd years. In fact, I haven't played golf 10 times since he died. But we had great crack because golf was very secondary to the poker game and the snooker game and the few pints in the clubhouse after with all the lads. Missed, there was only one Kelly. There'd be days on nights on stage that he wouldn't be on the ball, he'd be bad. But when Kelly was on song, I mean, that was something special. When Kelly was on song, it was pure magic, pure magic.
I remember Luke as somebody who, he didn't have any great value in material things. He was a bit of a wanderer and like a troubadour, a wandering troubadour, I suppose. He didn't have any real roots, but he didn't have any real value in possessions as such. And one little story to illustrate this, my wife Mary was at an auction one day and she bought a set of chairs, unusual chairs, black lacquered with little gold inlay. And I was in Luke's house about 3 weeks after this, and what did I see in Luke's house? Only a table with no chairs, a table, the exact match for these chairs. And I remember saying to Luke, I told him the story about Mary buying the matching chairs. And he said, well, I said to Luke in a kind of a joke, either you'll have to take the chairs or I'll have to take the table. And he looks out the window and he said, have you got a roof rack on the car? And I said, yeah. He said, right, out, take the table. And he had the table out the door before I could stop him, tied onto the roof rack, and that was me home with Luke's table.
We were playing in Mannheim, and Luke got quite sick, and he was taken away to Nuremberg. So I went straight home, went to bed, found out about the trains, got the train to Nuremberg the next morning, and I went over to this policeman in the middle of the road, and in my almost non-existent German said to him, like, a neurological clinic, like, where, he said, the place is full of them. Which one do you want? I said, well, which would be most likely? So he pointed out one, and I went into it, and luckily enough, Luke was there. And this was about, I suppose, about 11 o'clock in the morning. Or, yeah, or maybe even earlier. But anyway, Luke came down and we sat in a little room and we talked for about 3 or 4 hours. And that's the last conversation I had with Luke. And not that we'd anything to heal or to mend or repair, but we just got to know how each one was thinking, and you know, as much as you ever will about anybody. And I was putting my side and Luke was putting his side, and we had a great conversation. I'm always grateful that I had that conversation with him, because after that we continued with the tour in Germany. Luke came home, and it was Christmas time, you know, or coming up to Christmas when Luke came home, and I hadn't seen him over the Christmas, and next thing he was in hospital, and that was it.
The last time he sang on the stage, now before he got the operation, we were down in Cork in the Opera House, and I was keeping an eye on him because I'm not trying to get kind of an epileptic fit, and he was singing. I don't know what song it was. I think it could have been The Shows of Herring. He did a great job on that song. And I could see him taking I was saying, don't come out in the second half. Look, you're not too well. And he said, Barney, he said, look, these people here paid to hear me singing.
Well, Kieran was one of the lads, along with Luke, that I knew before I knew any of the others in the Dubliners. I used to meet Kieran a lot in about 66, 67, around Bridget Burke's and a lot of the south side shebeens. And Joe Kennedy, you know, and all that crowd. There was quite a... He lived right beside a shebeen himself, as you probably know. And he was another very complex man, actually. He was... he thought very deeply about lots of things. He was very interested in the music itself, the history of the music and the language. Very interested in it, and he actually took everything seriously, now that I think of it. Even humour, he took seriously, you know. humour was a serious business.
Well, I knew Kieran too, and the parties up at his house, there was a couple of those. They were wild nights, you know, this is surreal, like something from medieval times with the drink flowing and musicians from everywhere, from overseas, from Brittany, and the very weird music that can be, the sound of it all. It was amazing. And the grey dawn, we were outside playing the whistle with his porch made of Guinness bottles. And I have fond memories of Kieran as well. He was also very generous and very friendly to me.
When John sort of mooted this 40th anniversary reunion stuff, that myself and Ronnie should come back and, you know, do these things, I kept ringing John sort of saying, any danger of a rehearsal? You know, it's 22 years since I left the Dubliners. You know, and I was getting, I said, you know the stuff. I said, I know the stuff, but what's everybody else doing? Like, I've never been on stage with Ronnie. You know, I said, 22 years, I'm nervous now. You know, I said, sure, we're going over the night before, we've plenty of time. Well, that's never happened anyway. The fact is, we walked on in front of that huge crowd the end of last January, and it was just like it was like the last night I played with them 22 years before.
It's a bit of a miracle how it functions, really, because I think if you were to try and pick 5 more diverse persons than we are, I don't think you could possibly succeed. And we all do our own thing. I mean, even musically within the group, each one steps forward and does their solo, backed by the other 4 or 5, as the case may be. And whereas most other groups, I think that they operate as a group, as an entity of a group all the time, you know. And I think the same is true of each one of us socially. We seldom socialise together. Not to say we're not good friends, and I might go out with Ronnie for a meal one day and maybe Eamon another day, or I might ramble out to Barney's place and go out fishing occasionally. And I think that's why the group has stayed together for so long.
It's more a familial thing than a, you know, than just being a member of a band. You know, like, you know, I mean, like I have, I'm very fond of all the lads in the band, you know, and we don't socialise all that much together. But at the same time, if there's anything like a wedding or anything like that, you know, and there recently my brother died, I had a mercy on him, and the lads all showed up and played at the funeral and all that. So it's kind of, you know, we don't go on holidays or together or any of that stuff. And, you know, I mightn't see the lads for ages when I'm not working with them. But when we do meet, like, you don't have to sort of, it's almost as though you were saying, well, as I was saying, you know, you don't have to reintroduce yourself. And it's there now for so many years, you know, and we all know one another's foibles.
We all have our own little, I don't know, like John and myself playing together, Riley and myself, you know, there's Barney and myself doing the banjo solo guitar. There's all these lovely little elements in the concerts, you know, and it's just, it all, you know, at the end of the night, the punters have loved it and it's all clicked.
That's the family with some deceased members, I could put it that way. The dynamic is still there, definitely. And everybody gives it the best shot, regardless of the troubles you might have at home, domestically or personally, or even dissensions within the group, which arise at times, don't impede on the actual performance. And I've seen rows going on before the gig, get then onto the stage and give it lacquery. And
myself and Ronnie get on very well. A lot of people are quite nervous around Ronnie because he gives off these, you know, seriously grumpy vibes. These are actually not pretend vibes at all. He is seriously grumpy.
And I am grumpy, you know, no doubt about it, I'm grump. But then you see, I don't subscribe. Another way you say to fella, how are you? And now you're complaining. I think that every youth are complaining. And no use in whinging and sitting in the corner and saying, oh, that was terrible, you know what I mean? But complain, always, you know, keep on going. You keep complaining, you get something done. If you don't complain, you get nothing done.
So I could see